All right, what is up, YouTube? It is your boy, your poet, Kendrick Youngblood, and we have here the incredible, the amazing, the talented, soft-spoken poet. If you haven't seen her before, she's actually been a finalist in my poetry contest twice now. She has been a longtime viewer on the channel, but most importantly, I consider her a friend. And she has very recently come out with a poetry collection called When a Grasshopper Whispers. So definitely, we're going to be talking about the self-publishing process, and you're going to really benefit from her insight. I definitely believe that. So stay tuned. Miss Jesica Fields, the soft-spoken poet, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing all right. You know, the Christmas season has just passed, but I still feel very festive, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not me. I took down my tree already. Like the day after Christmas, I was like, okay, time to start over.
I respect that, because I'm one of those families where we have the Christmas tree up until February. Like, it'd be that bad. Yeah. But I guess one thing people will be wondering upon just hearing my introduction to you is, what is the story behind your name, the soft-spoken poet?
Yeah. So when I was starting my YouTube channel, I was like, you have to have a handle or like a name. And my whole life, everyone's been telling me like, speak up, because I'm very soft-spoken. And so I have Asperger's. So in my head, I feel like I'm shouting, but nobody could hear me ever. So I just wanted to honor that and like own the fact that I'm soft-spoken, so that way when my viewers hear me or see me, they know what to expect, and that I'm very kind of quiet, on the quiet side. So that's where that came from.
I see. All right, that's real cool. For Kendrick Youngblood, that's actually just a derivative of my real name, my government name, Kenny Youngador. But I thought that didn't sound very cool. Not that I don't like my name, I do, but you know, for a YouTube channel, I was like, I don't know about that. And I even created the name before having a YouTube, but I'm glad I did, because Kenny Youngador was not gonna cut it. Jesica Fields sounds like a cool name though. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so, but yeah, I'm glad to know the story, because I've never actually asked you personally, you know, so that's cool. All right, and what was your motivation behind writing the collection?
Um, Honestly, I started writing poetry to heal inner trauma, and so 2 years ago, I have like the certificate up there. I took a writing course to be a writer, and I wanted to do like journalism. I wanted to write for magazines, and as I started writing, poetry was coming out, and I was healing certain things, and I keep them in these little notebooks. This is where I write in my office here, and I have these little hardback notebooks that I just journal in every time, and it's like all chicken scratch, and I was just having all these things come out, and I was like, I've got to do something with this, because for me, healing is transcending that, all that pain. And so for me, putting out a book was saying, okay, that chapter's closed. I can move forward and do what I got to do. So that's kind of how everything, the collection came together. And I didn't leave pretty much anything out. Like everything I wrote while I was healing, like 80, 90 something poems, are in the book.
I guess I should have prefaced with this. Jesica actually hired me to be one of the editors for the collection, and y'all, I'm not just saying this because I had any kind of part to play in it. No, really, this is an amazing collection. In the unboxing, I titled the unboxing video I did on my channel, I Found the Next Emily Dickinson. All right, you're able to provide a very unique perspective on you know, mental health and just coming of age and growing up, particularly because of the neurodivergence you expressed earlier, you know, having Asperger's and things like that. I've never experienced poetry like this before, to be 100% honest. Do you think you're able to provide a unique perspective?
Some of the feedback I got was with other readers, they're saying that I'm very straightforward when I write my poetry, and some people really like that, and other people kind of like the more metaphorical type of poetry. But that is some of the Asperger's coming through, because we're very blunt and honest, and we tell it like it is. And so when I was going through healing and stuff like that, I didn't want to leave anything out, and I wanted whoever picked up my book to know you're not alone, and everybody goes through the same types of feelings and emotions, and it's okay to express them. And so if I could get super vulnerable, I tried to do it as best I could.
Yeah, and I think you did an incredible job. Another thing I really like to see was you exploring your journey through motherhood and stuff. Ah, man. I've read poems that cover that as well, but usually from the perspective of like, I have it all figured out. you know. This was like, whoa, you know what I mean? It just made me appreciate my mother and what I'm sure, like, I was her firstborn, so like that was definitely a new experience for her, and her having to tackle that and figure it out. Yeah, 100%. I loved I love the poems where you explored, one, mental health, but two, motherhood for sure.
Yeah, I think that's something that's not talked about enough in the mental health like realm is the fact that mothers who have mental health issues or like neurodivergency, like we struggle so much. It's so hard being a mom as it is, and then to have your own inner child healing to do and your own you're practically parenting yourself, and then you have these little humans to parent too, and so you're kind of learning with them. And so I think a lot of people don't talk about that enough, and how you're just trying to reparent yourself while you're parenting.
Yeah, well said. What other themes would you say might exist in this collection? So, overcoming mental health struggles, motherhood. Is there anything else you would say is there?
I think there's a faint theme of spirituality, not in the broad sense, but kind of like just hopefulness and faith in self, and the capacity to heal certain things and overcome them. So
There's a foreword at the start of the collection that was beautifully written, but even upon me reading it as an editor, I was like, I wonder what exactly she meant by that. Would you be willing to share what your intentions were behind the foreword?
yeah, so the foreword says, "The world is painted differently in my mind, so I tell you the stories of my reality. Listen with conviction, and surely you'll deem me a liar." And this is just basically a forewarning to my readers that, if you come in with a closed mindset and you're not open-minded about the topics in the book, then you're going to be like, you know, she's dramatic, or, it's just kind of basically have an open mind. And if you convict somebody before you even know their whole story, chances are you're not going to give them a chance to share their story. So
Right. Oh, okay. This wasn't the question I had planned, but why did you choose for the cover to be like this? I love it, by the way. The grasshopper. I know the lighting isn't allowing you to really appreciate this. Let me do it with this camera. Okay, y'all can see how it looks. There's a grasshopper on a flower, and there's clouds in behind. Yeah. What were your thoughts behind that? What made you make this cover?
this cover wasn't like this in the beginning. It was actually yellow. It was like this kind of yellow.
Mm.
And it had the grasshopper. It would just had the grasshopper on it, and it had like some kind of sound waves on there. And I was like, I just felt like, because it's such a heavy topic with healing and mental health, I wanted it to feel calming and embrace the reader in a way that it's like your happy place, like your peaceful place. And so clouds, and I talk about clouds in the book, like when I'm feeling sad, I look to the clouds. And I also talk about color in the book, like blue hues being a calming and healing color, and also being blue with depression. And so that's where the kind of baby blue comes from, and having baby blues with postpartum. And so there's a lot of color theory and stuff that went into it that I considered.
Yeah, I can definitely see that 100%. Now, can you tell us about the process of self-publishing? Being that this is your first book you've ever self-published, just get into the nitty gritty, you know what I'm saying? The details that you feel like people won't care about, that's what we want to hear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I didn't intend to self-publish at first. I was querying my work, and I was getting a lot of the no's. And the thing about when I was researching like the poetry industry, I mean, in the 21st century, it's about who you know and who's following you and things like that. And so I started with practically no following, and I'm still growing my audience, and I'm still figuring out who I'm speaking to. And so I was getting those no's from literary agents and publishing houses, and I felt like I need to take this into my own hands, because I need to have a product that I can, walk the walk, because I'm talking the talk. I'm writing these queries saying, hey, this is going to be something good, I think you might be interested in. And they're like, you're not really have a big following. There's no people, the publishing houses lose money when they publish poetry, because it's such a small niche. And so you really have to be like blown up to have any kind of chance at getting picked up. And I say that lightly. It's not impossible, but so I felt like if I self-publish this, then I can at least put something out there, get some confidence in myself, and it's still not too late. My book is on Amazon, so if it does well, there's still a chance that it could be picked up by a publishing house at a later time. But really, there's no losing when you self-publish. It didn't cost me anything. From start to finish, I could do it all on my own, aside from hiring editors and my marketing and stuff like that. If you just want to put a book out there just to see how it does, it won't cost you anything. And so as far as like putting it together, having the manuscript was probably one of the most important things, like having it finished, because I spent so much time shifting like margins, and if I would have had everything ready to go before I used the KDP thing, because I went through Amazon. There's other self-publishing platforms, but Amazon, you have to drop everything in, and then it's clicking buttons, deciding how you want your layouts to be, and then it's pretty much from start to finish. You could have a book self-published in less than 48 hours. But mine took 8 weeks because I didn't have the manuscript finished. So, and then the cover I did on a separate platform. I used Adobe Express, and I had all the dimensions, and I had to design it, and then that was just a PDF that I dropped into the KDP platform as well. And then from there, it was just making sure it was edited correctly, and then deciding on how I wanted to market it and price it. And that's the hardest part, I think, deciding what you're going to sell it for, because you want to put value on your work, but you also don't want to undercut the market. Sometimes you'll go on Amazon, you'll see books for like $50 or $24, and you're like, where is that fitting into the market? So I tried to price mine accordingly to what was trending in the poetry market. And so usually that's anywhere from $9 to $12. And then from there, I think is there anything that you had a question about? Because that's, for me, it went by so fast, and I was just like, I decided to do it, and then 8 weeks later, here it is. And I'm like, oh, I like blinked and it was over.
Yeah.
So,
You spoke about the time investment, it being about 8 weeks. What about monetary investment? Was it an expensive process for you? What was that like?
I like to say that I'm like I have a business mindset. And so when I went into it, I kind of set myself up with a budget. And so I knew, based on the following that I did have and the friends and family that I know that wanted to read the book, I knew I could reasonably afford about $250. I would earn that back in sales. So I didn't want to overextend myself, but I ended up spending about $250, and that included hiring 3 editors, all of my marketing, like how I packaged everything, that included that. My live stream, I did some decorations. For my book launch, I did a virtual book launch party. So it can really be as big or as little as you want it to be. But I would keep in mind, if you have a small following or you don't already know, because I'm still waiting on my book to break even. I'm very close, but so I haven't really earned anything yet, because I had to take into consideration what I put into the book.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
That's something a lot of authors don't talk about. You think like, oh, I have a book on Amazon, I'm making millions of dollars. It's like, no, I have to break even, and I have, things to do with it and all that stuff. So
Yeah. Now, there's one particular aspect of the book that, when I tell you I've never seen it before, I mean ever. Okay. And it's one of the things I find to be most unique about it. And that is your inclusion of non-poems, but more so, I'll show it to this camera, more so Twitter posts. You know what I mean? That blew my mind. I was like, what? I've never seen that before. It just caught me off guard. It was actually jarring at first, but I came to like it a lot. What was your decision behind that, and what made you select certain social media posts over others?
Actually, when I started Instagram and I was trying to build my audience, I would put out little, Insta quotes or Insta poems, and then I took a break from social media, and all that content came down. And so, but I saved it, and I was like, this is good stuff. Like, I don't want to waste it. So then I was like, how can I incorporate that into the book? And so I had considered just writing it in the book, but then I was like, people talk about Insta poets in a certain light, and I wanted to make it very apparent that I was using social media posts in my book, just to give it a different feel and vibe, because we're in a new era, you know, and it's social media is everything, but sometimes we have to disconnect from social media, but we like that familiarity of having the same kind of platform to look at. So when you're reading the book, it's like, oh, I'm familiar with how Twitter looks or how Instagram looks. And so it's almost a comforting, like, nostalgia to have in a book format, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And for those of y'all who didn't get a good look of what I was trying to show, I'll edit it in so you can see, but she's literally taking a screenshot of the social media post, like on Twitter, and putting it on the pages in the book, right? So I'd say it's almost like 50-50 between like poems and social media posts, maybe 55% poems. It's pretty close, you know what I mean? And yeah, that was just revolutionary. I've read a lot of poetry collections, a lot. Like, just even on this desk alone, I have a whole bunch right here, you know what I'm saying? And I have a lot more where that came from. I've never seen that done before. So I feel like it was a great touch. And I
And it's
think,
so gross too. I think I put them in order from how I would post them, and so it kind of shows where my mindset was at any given point in my journey. And so I thought that was kind of cool.
yeah, I completely agree. Now, when it comes to the ordering of the poems throughout the collection, what was your mindset there? Because one common question I get from aspiring artists is how to sequence, right? If I'm trying to tell some kind of narrative or story, do I begin with like the hardest hitting stuff, or maybe the sweeter sentimental stuff so I don't scare people away? Like, well, what was your mindset there in ordering the poems?
That was a big topic in writing the book because, you know, you want to have a theme, of course, like what your general tone of the book is. And sometimes I could have broken this book up into like 3 sections, like childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. But that's kind of how I kind of try to take it from childhood trauma into the trauma I faced as a teenager into the traumas I faced as an adult and as a mother. And so it kind of goes in a linear coming of age type of fashion. That's what I chose to do.
Yeah, and well done. All right. If it sounds like I'm just hyping this too much, audience, I swear I'm not. On everything, I'm not, okay? You definitely want to check this out. And here's the thing. She goes into more detail about the self-publishing process that she went through on her channel. So definitely subscribe and check that out. If you're interested in learning more about how to get your own work out there the way she did, you know, she's got a playlist on her channel. Check it out. I'm telling you, check it out. All right. Now, you mentioned, editors being part of the budget that you, when it came to self-publishing. What made you select the editors you selected? And how did you reach out to them?
Yeah, I had been networking for 2 years and building relationships with other poets and artists. And when it came down to editors, I picked people that I trusted and that have never steered me wrong. A lot of these editors are people that I either watch on YouTube or I've taken workshops with them. So I've invested into them as much as they've invested into me. And so it was kind of a no-brainer of who I would choose. If I hadn't been networking for so long and built those relationships, I would find it very hard to decide like who I would go with. And at that point, I'd have to go in blindly of, you know, who do I pick to edit my stuff. But for me, it was building those relationships and having that working relationship where I know that whoever's reading my poetry knows me and they know my heart and they know what I'm trying to do. And that was really important to me.
That's awesome. Yeah. So audience, y'all heard that, social networking, right? I have a totally separate episode on social networking and the importance of that. And you're proof of its importance. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really glad you brought that up. Oh yeah. Okay. This is a simple question. So I'm one of the editors for sure, but who are the other two?
So I use Dimitri Reyes, who is also on YouTube, and Matt Wall, who is also on YouTube. 2 very different poets from 2 very different walks of life. And of course, you two, all different walks of life. And so I like that perspective of having different people kind of getting their hands in my work. So
Yeah. And those are 2 incredible poets in and of themselves. You know what I'm saying? So you definitely picked well with those 2. I'm honored that you included me even in that conversation with those 2. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's an honor.
You do so much like analytical stuff on YouTube. Like I was like, okay, he knows how this works. Like he knows what's good and what works. And so after watching your videos and how you like break it down, I was like, okay, he can he can really add some value to what I have too. So that's why I chose you too.
I appreciate that. And how did you reach out to each of us? Because I'm sure people are wondering, okay, even if I identify who I want to be an editor, how do I do that?
So for me personally, since I've built these working relationships, it was just an Instagram DM, like, hey, I've got this project. Are you interested? I can afford this much. We worked out a reasonable budget. But if you're not familiar with the people you're going with, a lot of the times, I know Matt has a website, and also Dimitri had a website. And so they have a thing in there where you can actually solicit their service and say, okay, I want to pay for an hour of like coaching or editing, and they have those services listed. So if you're brand new and you want to check out Dimitri's website or Matt's website, they actually have it there where you can pay for their services on the website.
Yep. And see, I've been working on a website the past couple of months. It's supposed to go up the start of the new year, sometime in January. You know what I mean? So, yeah, websites are very important.
To that website, because it's
Yeah. But you're giving some gold gems right now. I really hope people are listening. Now, my next question is, what impact do you hope this poetry book will have on audiences? And who would you say this book is meant for? Like, what would you say the audience should be?
I would say, the main person I was writing to, the audience, is anyone that's healing from trauma or going through therapy, because I used poetry and writing as a form of therapy. But really anybody who feels like they can't speak out or speak about the parts of them that are wounded or traumatized. Like, it's normal, it's completely healthy to address certain things, and it's okay to shed a light on the parts of us that we're not so proud of, or the things that happened to us in life that kind of brought us down. I think paying attention to those things from childhood all the way into your life presently, really looking at yourself and addressing things for what they are, like, it helps just feel less anxious and depressed, and because it's not weighing, you're not compartmentalizing it, you're speaking out, you're letting it be known, whether it be for the whole world or just for yourself in a journal. It's important.
Yeah. And the making of this book, would you say there were any benefits you experienced in the process of making it? Or were the benefits already gained from just writing the poems individually prior to making the collection?
I think the main benefit for me personally was just confidence in knowing that I'm capable of doing things. When I first started, like I said, I went to school and got a certification in creative writing, but poetry wasn't included in that certification. So I had to go out and seek workshops, and I had to learn how to put a poem together. And I knew I had a knack for writing, but putting it together in a pretty way and in a cohesive way, I had to learn. It took me almost 2.5 years to get just the confidence to even say I could write a book or even call myself a poet. Like, they'd be like, what do you do? I'm like, I would never say I was a poet, because I would be so intimidated by that word, because I didn't know if I could fit that narrative, because I hadn't written anything. But even today, I have children's books that I want to write, but I don't know how to draw very well. So in 2023, I'm going to go back to school and take some drawing classes so I can learn how to illustrate and make those things come to life. And I think it's just not being afraid to just go out there, and if you don't know something, then learn it. If you're not confident in it, then practice it until it's to the point where you're like, yes, I'm gonna do this. And that's kind of how it came to be for me.
Nice. And speaking of illustrations, I think it's really cool that you're gonna try to work on your drawing game and illustrations so that you can incorporate that into future works. I noticed that there were some photos and images throughout here. Let me just show it to the screen real quick. I'll show another one. What was your intention when it came to the illustrations you added?
So that's kind of funny that you mentioned that, because it was an afterthought. I had worked so hard to get my margins and my spacing correct. Some of my poems were 2 to 3 pages long, and so everything would kind of get bumped one way or the other. and I had got it so perfect. I was like, I do not want to move anything because if I shift it, then it's going to throw the whole flow of the book off. And so I'm like, what can I add as filler? And I just went back to my old Instagram posts and kind of tried to pair pictures as best as I could with the poem that was either preceding it or following it. And yeah, that's how it was. Very risky, I would say, because writing a collection like this is such a personal collection, and then to add personal photographs of myself and my family, it's like, is that self-centered of me to do that? Or but I had to fill some space, and so I thought it would be cool to just add photos because pictures are speak 1,000 words. So
Nice. And see, even though it was a last minute decision, sometimes these last minute decisions can be exactly what a book needs to just wrap everything into a nice bow. I think the photos was a great choice. I think it was a great choice, even though it was a seemingly out of nowhere afterthought, you know? I guarantee you, I think it was the chef's kiss, the cherry on the ice cream, you know what I'm saying? The icing
awesome.
on the cake, you know? So
Yeah,
great
I've
choice.
heard about it.
Now, if you could redo anything in the process of creating this collection, what would it be?
um, I think that I would want to know that I was going to write it in the first place. Um, because a lot of the there was so much disorganization about it because I had poems in journals, I had poems on my phone, I had poems in my computer, on my Google Docs. There were so many poems like scattered everywhere, and I was like pulling from all these places. I think when you first edited the first draft of it, I had found like 13 or 15 poems after that on my phone, and I was like, I added more poems. Um, and Dimitri was like, that's kind of risky to add so many, like after we already went through it and edited it. But um, I would want to be more organized. And so I came up with a system of, I like to write on paper before I put it into the computer. So I got like a binder and I put dividers in the binder to kind of outline certain themes or chapters in my books. And then as I write poems, I just kind of put the notebook paper in whatever subsection that is going to be in the book. And so by the time I'm ready to put the book into the manuscript, I just have to go through the binder and just flip the pages and it's already lined up. So that's how I'm going to do my next one. But this one was all over the place and it was chaos.
So you've already decided on doing another one.
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. See, that was about to be my next question. All right, cool. So I bet now that you've done it the first time, your experience is gonna aid you significantly in having an easier time this time around. Would you agree?
Yes, like physically, but emotionally and mentally, I'm kind of, I wouldn't say I'm at a creative block, but I feel like I've released a lot of trauma. And so I don't want to be known as like the trauma artist, but I don't know if I have anything to write about now. So I have to go out and live life a little bit and figure out what my next endeavor is going to be and what my next book theme is going to be. And I like to live off my gut. So like wherever life takes me, whatever my intuition says is right to do, I'm going to end up doing. But right now I'm just like, I have nothing to say. I've said everything that I need to say. Um, but I'm sure something will come to me eventually.
Yeah, I know it will, 100%. This is only the beginning. This is only the
Yeah.
beginning, 100%. Okay, so are there any artists that inspire your writing? And if so, who are they? Just so poets can get an idea of like what your writing might be like.
I like Emily Dickinson, obviously. Sylvia Plath has been like a big, she's been really prevalent in a lot of my, the way, like the confessional style of poetry that she did. And just her whole story of being a mother and having depression and things herself. I really resonate with Plath and all of that. It's a lot of old school stuff like Poe, and I really like Shel Silverstein and Dr. Seuss. Like those are my childhood favorites. I just like the whimsy and of all of the child and children's poetry, which I hope to do myself at some point. But yeah, those are some of my. I don't read a lot of poetry, which is so weird because I would say I'm a poet, but I'm so afraid of plagiarizing or copying the works of other people that I get afraid to read the works of other people. So
Yeah, I
But
can definitely relate. I still experience that. I read a lot, but even as I'm reading apprehensively. Like, I don't
mhm.
know if I'm gonna accidentally incorporate too much of someone else's technique and then be called a copycat. You know what I mean?
I know, like even in workshops, like people will read their poems that they write in the workshops, and I'm like, that's such a good angle. Like, oh, I kind of want to take that for myself. But like, it's so hard when you collaborate with other poets and artists to not kind of feed off of each other. But I think that's kind of what makes art kind of cool, is the fact that we can bounce off each other and make things our own. Because I do have a poem in there, Sylvia's Figs, which is bounced off of from her book, The Bell Jar, about it kind of bounces off that whole idea that she talks about in her novel. And so, it's kind of collaboration. It's not a complete plagiarism, but it's just my thoughts on what I read.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. Okay, last question. Oh, yes. Okay, so when it comes to your YouTube channel, why should people subscribe to it? What would they be getting themselves into?
That's an excellent question. I've been thinking about that myself. What would they get into? I think they would come to expect a lot of transparency and honesty with my stuff. I'm very real when it comes to things that I'm going through, especially as an artist. I like to do a lot of blogs and of just the process of the good, the bad, the ugly. I don't leave anything out, especially when it comes to like writer's block and creative block, things like that. Then I also do some independent projects where I'll write a poem and then I'll make a cinematography type of video to go along with it. It's kind of like a music video in the poetry realm, something you might see on Button Poetry or something like that. That's kind of what I do over there. And then I do a lot of like journalism. I want to get more into interviewing, like kind of how you do. I like to read other artists and then make it my own. I did something on Dimitri's book when it every first and 15th. I did a little journalism project just for fun, and so I hope to do more of that and incorporate more of that to kind of highlight other artists, because it's hard out here to get you know seen and appreciated.
Yeah, and I am an avid watcher of her channel. She makes great content, so take it from me, you're gonna want to check it out. 100%. Okay, now that we've gone through all the questions, you can promote your social media, promote any books, obviously, this one. So yeah, promote this one. And past, present, future projects, go ahead.
Yeah, so you can find me here on YouTube, Soft Spoken Poet. I'm also on Instagram. Um, Something I like to do those little shorts and TikToks and reels and things. I like to make light of being an artist and make some jokes and things about poet life. So you'll see me mostly on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, but I do have a Twitter and other social platforms, but it's kind of hard to keep up with all of them. My book is available on Amazon, and you can find that there. And like I said, I have other books in the works. I just have to figure out how I'm going to make them come to life. And when I figure that out, I'm sure you guys will be the first to see about it on my channel. Because like I said, I don't like to leave anything out. I never leave anybody behind. I'm not going to um, find success and then not share it, because that's so important in the artist community, is to find what works and then share those things with other people.
100%. All right. The soft-spoken poet, Jesica Fields, thank you so much for joining me on the channel. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and thank you to your audience. You have a really great community, and I always like seeing the comments and stuff. So
That means the world to me. Thank you. Thank you.